Well, hello. I'm Jonathan, and I'm a Mickaboo volunteer. In fact, all the people you'll see presenting today are Mickaboo volunteers. Mickaboo is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to education and the rescue and adoption of companion birds. We're a virtual organization with no paid staff and no physical location, caring for more than 450 birds spread across over 100 foster homes. We rely on donations to be able to serve the birds. And due to the poor state of health that many birds arrive in, our veterinary bills average $50,000 a month. That wasn't a misprint or whatever the vocal equivalent is. $50,000 monthly for essential vet care. And these costs are so high because often newly rescued birds need medical attention after being neglected for a long time, or overall failing health, or accidents from escape or injury from wild animals or other pets. So if you're able to help, please consider donating. And if you're looking to adopt a forever bird friend, you're in the right place. Okay, end of infomercial. Let's talk about the adoption and foster process. Since we're an all-volunteer organization, and because we want to be really careful about the well-being of the birds, the process can take a while. It's not like you go to the shelter, you pick out a dog, you go home with the dog. It takes several weeks to go through the process because it's multi-stage, as we want to ensure that we get to know you and your situation and review what we learn carefully and help you make an educated decision about what kind of bird is right for you. This can take 8 to 10 weeks, sometimes longer for a bigger bird. Please be patient because the results are really worth it. And if you feel like you haven't heard from us, do ping us because sometimes things accidentally drop and the reminders are welcome and helpful. So the process, before you can adopt, you need to go through the approvals process to make sure that you're prepared to bring a bird home. If you've already adopted or fostered for Mickaboo, then you've done this already and you can skip ahead. The first step is to attend our basic bird care class. Birds are complex creatures and their needs are completely different from those of a cat or a dog. They have their own body language, their own physical requirements, even their own vets. We cover all this and more in our basic bird class, which is free and held online every 2 or 3 weeks over Zoom. After that, you fill out an application and you'll be matched with a phone screener. And the phone screen conversation will take about an hour and help us get to understand you better and what you're looking for in a bird. And also, understand your overall knowledge of birds and bird care. So pay attention in that basic bird class. It's a great chance also for you to ask any questions you may have. You'll have the dedicated ear of a Mickaboo volunteer for an hour. Once the phone screen is complete, the next step is a home visit. This can be done as an in-person visit where a Mickaboo volunteer will come to your home, or sometimes it's done instead via Zoom or other software. And that's really up to the comfort and preferences of the people involved. Regardless of how it's done, the purpose is the same. It's a way for us to help you identify potential dangers in your home, help you find a good place for a cage, and get to know anyone who'll be caring for the bird. We'll want to see any current birds you own, any cages you might have, and see the parts of the house where the bird will be. This isn't a white glove test, and we don't mind a bit of mess, and we don't need to see bedrooms or other places where the bird won't be. Once the home visit is over, the entire package is sent off to the approvals board for review. And then once you're approved, the coordinator for your first choice species will reach out to chat with you, let you know that you're approved, and work with you to find a good match for you. Then you get the fun part, which is meeting the birds and finding the perfect bird for you in your home. In fact, I'm hoping that one of the birds we'll be showing today is going to be the perfect bird for you. I'll be introducing you to them one at a time as we go along. And please don't hesitate to ask any questions you might have, either through the Q&A tab in Zoom or by commenting on the live stream on Facebook. So today we'll be meeting several Mickaboo birds who are seeking their forever homes. And in order today, we will meet Tati, who's a cockatiel, Gracie, an African gray, a blue and gold macaw named Tutu, a suite of Budgies, Amber, Emily, Junie, and Nancy, and a flock of wonderful finches. So we'll introduce a bird and their foster, and you can learn more about them. Let's start with Tati. Hi, Martha.
Hi,
I think we're seeing Tati on video. Right. And Tati is a very sweet cockatiel. I want to remind our viewers you can ask questions about cockatiels or Tati in particular in the Q&A. And either our support volunteers will answer there in the Q&A or they'll bring up the question here. And remember that if you're thinking about fostering or adopting, both budgies and cockatiels are extremely social and they need the company of other birds. So we only adopt them out in pairs or to homes that already have other birds. So Martha, how old is Tati?
Tati is about 21 years old. He has only had one owner. The person who had him got him as a probably 6-month-old bird from a pet store or breeder. So he was with one person for quite a long time.
And birds form strong attachments, so he's probably grieving that loss to some extent.
Right.
He look.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for birds. He looks to be in good feather and overall good health. 21 is on the older side for a cockatiel, isn't it?
Yes, they can live. We've seen them up to at least 35 years old. So he's still got a ways to go, I think. He does have a little bit, you saw him sort of shuffling a little bit there on top of his cage. He does have some arthritis in his knees, which just means that he needs to get, he gets a little meloxicam, a little pain medication twice a day on his food. But otherwise gets around pretty well and can fly pretty well too.
Nice, so he can fly. And so you just sprinkle for the medication that you just sprinkle that on his food.
Right.
And he's okay. What's his diet like? What do cockatiels like to eat? Let's talk about that.
He is getting a diet from the vet. We often serve nutrient cakes, which is a cake made of pellets, a pelleted diet and some seed, because cockatiels are one species that should have some seed in their diet. A lot of times people think I know I was raised with a budgie that we just fed them seed, and that was what you gave your bird.
Birds ate bird seed. Yep.
Birds ate bird seed, right. And so cockatiels and budgies or parakeets, lovebirds do require some seed in their diet. They can't have just pellets. There you go, a little stretch there. So he gets this, it's like I say, a cake with pellets and seed in it. Crumple that up in his dish. And then he does get fresh greens every day. So either like salad greens, or he seems to like the crunchy part of romaine, like the part at the end, not so much the green part. And bok choy, I've seen him nibbling on that. You can see there he had some apple, which is something that his previous owner said he liked to eat. So I'm still working on, I have not had him that long, so I'm still working on getting him to eat, some good fresh greens, which the rest of the cockatiels eat as well.
Well, he's eating his food pretty enthusiastically there.
He's very enthusiastic about his food.
And what are the living requirements for, aside from having a friend, for a cockatiel like Tati? How big a cage should he have?
His cage is pretty large. This is the cage that he came with, and oh yes.
Hi, bud.
I probably put my hand up a little bit or something, and that's what he does when he sees a hand. The cage is probably, I guess, 3 feet high. It's at least 20 something inches wide and 20 inches deep. But the 20 inches is really a minimum of what you'd want for a cockatiel. They really need some space to climb around and be able to flap their wings. So,
and yeah. I want to point out, it was easier to see in another picture, but the bar spacing for cages for birds is really important. You'll notice that the bar spacing is smaller than his head, that he can't get his head through, because that can be a very dangerous situation.
Exactly. Yeah. For cockatiels, we don't recommend more than 5/8 inch bar spacing. That's between the bars. So this is about 1/2 inch. So yeah,
So
it's a very nice
how,
cage for him.
yeah, this looks like a nice cage for him. And he's getting around just great.
Yeah.
So the arthritis isn't too severe, seems like.
Mhm.
Um, how is he with people? How does he interact? Does he step up? Does he like to be around people? Does he more of an ambient bird?
He seems to be, unfortunately, very afraid of hands. And I know that his first owner said he was never tame, never hand tame. That's not to say that he couldn't learn. It's just it takes a lot of patience. He does seem like in this video here, I'm sitting next to his cage, which is what I do in the evening after I finish cleaning everybody's cages, and I'll sit down in the chair next to him. And he likes that, he will, sort of chatter at me. He definitely likes to have people around. He seems to be okay with other birds. But as far as actually handling him, he's not, not a fan of that. As one of our avian vets says, it calls him like a little dragon.
Yeah. Complete with crest.
Complete with crest, yes. Yes.
Does he like to shoulder surf or anything? Or if he's out flying, will he fly to a person? Or
I
he just
haven't
kind of likes to be in the background?
I haven't tried that. I've let him get out of his cage on his own. And he will fly. He'll fly like maybe to another cage, but he doesn't seem to be wanting to fly around a lot. I think he prefers to be more near his own home.
Right.
If I can, I'd be happy to try having him do a little shoulder surfing, if I can get him to do that. But we're taking it slow with him, just letting him kind of be, getting baths and enjoying the company of other birds.
Right. So he is with some other cockatiels for company, as well as perhaps
Right.
some other birds. Has he been around children or other pets that we know of?
I'm not sure about other pets. I do know that the reason that he was surrendered, unfortunately, is the woman who had him was helping take care of her grandson, and I think that he was taking up all the attention.
Got it.
Tati used to have a companion bird who passed before before him, and so he's used to, I think, living with another bird, but probably not. I would not, just in general, would not put a bird in the company of another pet,
Right.
especially not cats, and even dogs can have an instinct to go after things, especially if a bird goes to the floor, they may go
Yep.
after it and try to grab it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I've seen him enthusiastically eating and doing some preening and walking around. What kind of toys does he like, and what does he like to do? What's a Tati day like?
He he's got a lot of toys in his cage. It's I have not really seen him. I haven't seen him interact with them, although one I did find on the floor of the cage, and I think maybe he just, I don't know if it scared him or he just got vicious with it and tossed it to the bottom. He seems to like just sleep because he's a little bit older. He does, like I say, chatter. He will kind of do his little cockatiel chatter if you're maybe not watching him. Although I've heard him talk a little bit even to me. So he's really just kind of a chill bird, kind of taking in his surroundings, giving his opinion.
A nice guy to have around, really.
Yeah. He's one of the things that I've just read recently from another rescue was about offering homes as sanctuaries for birds. They, not all of them are the cute hand tame pets that we, a lot of people want. And which is, why we tend to have a lot of birds, or why I wound up with a lot of birds in foster care.
Yeah.
And Tati is somebody who, is, happy where he is. And I think is a bird that deserves to have his space. And as I said, I'm still learning about him. So we'll see, in the future, what else he gets interested in and what he'll allow, especially as he gets more medication into him and, is a little more comfortable, I think, physically.
And you mentioned the medication and that you can just sprinkle it on his food, which is easy. But is he considered a special needs bird from Mickaboo's perspective?
I haven't really thought about that. I don't consider him special needs, but
Got it.
he might be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So in our last few minutes, what else would you like to share with potential adopters or things they should be aware of? My main thing about him is just, giving him his space. He's beautiful. I love looking at him. He does talk pretty cutely. And I'm just happy with him as he is. As Nice.
A sovereign being. Yes.
we have 2 questions coming in. I was on the wrong channel, but 2 questions. One is, what's the medicine that he takes? I think you said
it's meloxicam.
Meloxicam.
It's an anti-inflammatory. Yeah.
Yep. And someone else asked if it's a requirement that the adopter already have another cockatiel. It's a requirement that they either have another cockatiel or that they adopt a pair, because they are so social.
Yes, and every bird deserves to have, or at least these smaller birds deserve to have another of their own kind to keep them company.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Martha. And
thank you.
Taki, hope you find a good home soon.
Thanks.
We're going to cut over to another video of Gracie the African Gray. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Jonathan. Hello.
She is such a sweet looking girl. I want to remind our viewers that they can ask questions about Gracie in the Q&A on Zoom or in Facebook, and I'll try to get the question handled here. So let's start with, how old is Gracie?
Gracie is about 17 years old. She's in her late teens.
In her late teens, and I see right now that she's tolerant of hands and a little bit of beak scritching and maybe a little head scritching. So
yeah, she's pretty good with hands, although she doesn't show it in this video that much, but you'll have to take my word for it.
Yeah, no, those aren't aggressive bites. That's just kind of, hi, I'm checking you out. So 16, 17 is sort of young adulthood for Gray, but Gracie has some health problems. So let's talk about that.
She does. You can just see in the video here, there was a little shot of the modified cage setup that we have for her. She has terrible arthritis in her knees. So she's really struggling with standing, perching, walking. And it took a while we've actually taken her to 3 different avian vets over the course of looking after her. She came into Mickaboo in September 2021.
You can really see, just as she was stepping forward, how difficult it is.
Yeah, her legs are a little bit behind the water dish in this particular angle, but there's a few different videos coming up. And if you can see how she perches, she kind of stands on her knees. She's kind of kneeling all the time. She will perch.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah. So if you're holding her with your hands, you have to be super careful, because she doesn't grip onto your fingers so much as lean back on her knees, and that tips her weight distribution backwards, and then she thinks she's falling, so she'll start flapping like crazy because she's trying to right herself again. Right. So yeah, her knees are essentially completely gone. We got an X-ray, and they just don't work at all. So she can't stand up like normally you'd see a bird standing up straight on their legs. So she gets some pain medication, and this is a little clip showing how well she takes it. She's really good. You can just put the syringe up to her mouth and she will gladly, this is just water as an example, because I did her pain meds first thing in the morning. But
Right. She's really good with it. She's got
very
it
good.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, we were, at first I had to hold her upper beak and just scoot it in there. I didn't have to towel. She does not like being toweled. So we started exploring ways to make it less stressful. And I could just hold her upper beak with one hand so that I could hold her head steady and then scoot the medicine in with a syringe. And now she knows the deal. So she just sees it coming and takes it. She's really good.
Yeah, she is clearly really good with taking meds. So we saw her special cage. So let's talk about her housing requirements and how we accommodate for her arthritis.
Yeah, she has a tendency to fall. So when you give her a pain medication, she'll be a little bit more active, and she will climb up the cage bars sometimes, but she doesn't have a great grip and her knees don't work. So she will fall, and it's important that she's protected from further injury. So we put a raised base in this cage. So if she does fall, she's not falling too far. She's got low perches right above the base so that she can perch with the support of tipping back onto the towel if she needs. And then we have a folded towel on top of the raised grate with a flannel on top of it. The flannel is important because that doesn't have any loops, so her nails aren't going to catch on it. She's not going to end up getting stuck in it.
Right,
the towel,
which she would on a towel. Right.
Yeah, and the towel provides extra padding, so it's nice and comfortable for her if she does. And she does loaf. She'll sort of fully squat down sometimes, just to give her poor knees a break. So she wants to be more comfortable. She's got the option of doing that, and it also protects her if she falls.
Right. And so with a flannel instead of paper, and right there, I assume that we're doing laundry pretty much daily for Gracie.
Yeah, that needs to be changed every day. Obviously, when she poops, she's pooping onto that surface. So every time I'm going by the cages, I just keep some bathroom tissue right next to her cage. And if I see that she's done something, I'll try and pick it up quickly because some of them can be pretty liquid. We could talk a bit about her poop. It's quite unusual. Yeah, it means changing the flannel and the towel every day. So doing bird laundry is an important part of taking good care of Gracie.
Right. What does she like to do? What does she need and like his toy? I see one of our favorites, a little treasure chest puzzle. Does she like that?
Yeah, she doesn't know how to open it, but she loves messing with it. She'll go over and rub her beak all over it and play with the little latches and the chain. She's got a real affinity for it. It's so funny. We actually originally got it for another African gray who was terrified of it. So we gave it to Gracie, who immediately took to it, but she just messes with it. She doesn't really know how to open it. And that's fine. She just likes the hard texture. She seems to like a mixture of hard and soft. So we've got some natural material, chewable toys. We can't give her, it's really important that she doesn't get any cardboard or paper. So she has had issues. She can get really hormonal. So even if there's no nesting spots or any cavities around, just ripping up paper, even if it's not being stashed or piled up anywhere, just the sensation of ripping up the paper. And also, cardboard can have chemicals in it. So she has a tendency to ingest the cardboard a little bit too. So it's really important, no cardboard or paper for her. So the Planet Pleasures toys there are made out of natural materials, and she does like chewing on those. They're kind of like coconut fiber kind of things. And then she really does like hard toys too. So metal toys and hard acrylic like that puzzle toy.
Nice. Let's see. We're running out of time, so I'll try to zip through a couple of things. She's comfortable with hands, and she has this bad arthritis. Does she step up, or is there another way that she comes to hand? And does she like to hang out with people?
She does. She likes to come out and get a change of scenery. I have a platform I put her on when I take her out to change the towels. So she loves just being in a different space. I'll sometimes take her food dish out so that she can have a snack out there as well. And I just put a towel down on another surface. Sometimes I use the kitchen counter. You just need to make sure it's something that she couldn't fall off of.
Right.
she's not super adventurous and she moves very slowly and deliberately. But sometimes to pick her up, rather than try and get her to step up because she finds that difficult, I'll just pick the whole towel up with her on it.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Greys are thought of generally as great talkers. Does Gracie talk, or what kind of vocalizations does she do?
She does talk. She says no and water. And her favorite thing to do is whistle. So anytime she sees you around, she'll start whistling and you have to whistle back to her, and then she'll whistle back to you. And she has lots and lots of different whistles. So her favorite thing is whistling and being whistled at. So we have lots of whistle conversations.
Nice.
Yeah, it's funny because her cheeks kind of puff out too when she's whistling. She's got very chubby cheeks. We actually think that's from a vitamin deficiency. She's got quite an unusual face for a gray.
She does. So she's not a particularly loud bird. What does she eat?
She eats Harrison's pellets.
Nice.
We give her a little bit of seeds and nuts as a treat, but she gets 2 meals of Harrison's pellets, morning and night, breakfast and dinner. And then lots of fresh veggies and fruit as well. And she's a good vegetable eater. We serve that as a course before her pellets. Nice. So she tucks into that before she has her pellets, and she will lick the dish clean. So we keep an eye on her weight. She was quite overweight when she first came in, and we worked on getting that down. It turned out that she has a little lump on her belly, and the first theory from the vets was that that was a fatty lump, but on closer inspection and more vet visits, we've concluded it's actually a hernia. So there's not really anything to be done about it, other than just being very vigilant of changes in her poop, making sure she doesn't get hormonal, and yeah, just providing a good, safe setup for her and watching her weight.
So in our last few minutes, talk a little bit about what life with Gracie is likely to be like and what her prognosis is.
Well, she's not going to get more mobile. We're still adjusting the levels of pain meds she gets. We did have her on an additional second pain medication, which is really strong. And it did mean that she moved more, but it's a trade-off because, you know, you don't want a bird to be on lots and lots of strong meds for life. There are other consequences of that. So it's still a journey, and we might still up the doses a little bit. So we're still making some fine tuning on that, but she's definitely, she poops better and she perches better and she moves more when she's on pain meds. So it's important to keep her lots of regular vet checks, keep her medication refilled, stay on top of her bird laundry to keep her clean and sanitary, give her safe out time. She enjoys company. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to walk around with her on your shoulder or anything, because anything that puts her at risk of falling wouldn't be safe. But you know, you could take her out in a carrier so that she could enjoy some sunshine. You could fix a carrier on a stroller and take her for walks on a stroller. We have you know, some people who've done that with special needs birds and really found it a great way to keep them included in your activities. So sweet. Yeah, I haven't gone to those lengths, but if she's with me for a lot longer, that might be something for us to think about. All right. Thanks so much, Sarah, for sharing Gracie with us. She's just got such a sweet disposition. She's a super sweet bird. She has never bitten anyone. I think she's not inclined to do that, and she puts up with a lot when we're changing her towels and stuff. And she's very, very good natured, which is quite unusual for greys. They're normally much more skittish, and can be quite nippy. But she's a pretty special one. She sure is. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. We are now going to move to the really big bird. John, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
There's Tutu. Hi, Tutu. Tutu is a blue and gold macaw, looking very large and majestic there, especially as the camera adjusts. I want to remind people once again, they can ask questions about Tutu or any of the birds in the Q&A. And so, John, what's it like having Tutu around?
He's actually quite pleasant. He adds some new noises to the house. He does say a few words, and he likes to interact with the people, maybe not directly until he gets to know the person, but he's quite interactive with people. He will say hi as soon as you come through the door. He likes to welcome people home, and he is very food centric. He loves to eat just about anything. He will shoulder surf at times. He will step up. He likes to play. Well, he's acting a little nippy. Step up. Yeah, see. So
what a good guy. Yeah. Well, I
he
don't
likes
always
to
step
do-
up either.
he likes to do what he wants to do, and so he'll let you know if he's not interested, and then if he is interested, he'll
Let you know that.
if he's not interested, you can get him interested by offering him a nut. If it's something that he really doesn't want to do, then you need a whole walnut in the shell, and he'll do just about anything for that.
I can relate, and certainly I don't interact much with people before I warm up to them either.
Right.
Here's the little shoulder surfing. Hi, Tutu. So macaws can kind of be, in fact, very loud. How do you manage that with Tutu?
He is usually loud in the morning. He's not so much loud at night, but usually birds do a morning call and an evening call to call the flocks together.
Yep.
And in the morning, he likes to announce that he is awake. This usually occurs around 9:30. I don't think he's ever gotten me out of bed. He usually does his morning call later in the morning, and I think that's partly because he's like, okay, it's time for everyone to get up. I would like to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And that morning call is, as it needs to be in the jungle, quite loud. We can hear him at the neighbors about a quarter mile away. In the evening, he also does a call, usually not very long, maybe a couple of calls just to make sure that everyone's there and knows that he's there.
Yep. Hey, flock, you okay?
He's not really that loud.
Right. But macaws in general are not birds for people who want a quiet bird in an apartment. That's for sure.
No, macaws in general are not quiet birds.
Exactly.
And when we agreed to foster him, I was expecting a lot more, but he seems to be one of the ones that's not terribly yelling.
Quiet for a macaw. Now we saw that he steps up, and sometimes, like any bird, he doesn't want to. How easy or hard is it to read his body language? Because you certainly don't.
He's quite easily read. I mean, if he wants something, he will let you know. If he wants to step up, he will wave. If he wants a piece of food that you have, he will wave. So you can see he's wanting to go somewhere right now. And so, it's quite easy to read his body language. If he's having a moment and he is not interested in dealing with you, he'll lunge. He's never made contact with me, but you sort of see it in his eye, and he's like, don't mess with me.
Don't push me.
He will open his beak and lunge, but like I say, he's never made contact. The lunge has been really a warning that, right now I'm not into it.
Yep. That's perfectly fair.
Yeah. And those moments don't last very long. I mean, if he has a moment, the moment's over rather shortly, or just give him a piece of food and the moment is over. He is not going to be angry with a grape in his mouth.
The fact that you've referred to it several times as having a moment really says that it doesn't last long.
Yeah, it's just a moment.
Do we know how old he is?
We think that he's somewhere between 10 and 12 years old.
Okay, so that's quite young for a macaw. Macaws can easily live 70, 80 years or longer.
Yes.
How does he interact with other birds? And do we know about children or other pets?
We have several other birds. We try to keep them as far apart from one another as we can. Birds are at least the birds that we have are very territorial about their cage, and they don't want to share their cage, and they don't want to share their space with another bird in particular, unless, we have a bonded pair that, they won't go
Right, of
anywhere
course.
without the other one. So, Jack has gotten out. Well, he was out, and then I turned my back on him, and he flew, or didn't fly. He crawled across the floor and then up onto the canary cage. But he didn't try to get to the canary. He just wanted the extra height to take a look around.
Right.
So he has never interacted poorly with any of our other birds. And we have some Pomeranians. He's pretty much ignores them, and we have a couple of cats, and he pretty much ignores them as well. And we always make sure that they're not close to one another.
Right.
I actually
Responsible work. I'm going to move on to the next question, just because we're getting questions from coming in. And
Sure.
A couple people are noticing that he's plucked some in the past. Is he still plucking, and has he been evaluated for
yes,
something medical?
He was evaluated. He was looked at. We don't know of any medical reason. It may be so when we got him, he was living in a garage without much light, and he was on a cat food diet.
Oh man, that's
And
terrible.
so when he came to us, he was beginning to pluck, or was plucking. He worries his feathers a little bit on the shoulders. It's hard to tell from day to day if it's getting worse or if it's getting better. Some days it looks like it's better and feathers are coming in, and then other days it doesn't look so good. He does enjoy preening, and if he doesn't, he'll preen any
He'll preen
hair.
you. He'll preen you.
Well, and the thing is if he also likes to grab one hair at a time and pull it out. So I think that it's sort of a nervous thing. And if he gets bored, then he works on his feathers. If he's near you, he might try to work on your feathers.
Your feathers, yeah. But yeah, that's a really high stress situation that he was in, with really poor diet. So that makes sense. And it seems reasonable that over time, and with good attention and activities, that he could get better, or certainly not get much worse.
Right. And that's what we're hoping. He's on a good pellet. He's on a good pellet diet. He does.
This is really sweet.
Although he's acting like he doesn't know what a person is at this point. You're not going to head surf. No.
Quick
so
question.
He's on a good diet. He does get his fruits and vegetables, and he eats his fruits and vegetables quite well. He has a sweet beak, and so he will eat his fruits much better than he will his vegetables. But he is willing to, like I say, he's very food centric. So he'll try. Come here. No.
Anything for a nut.
Yeah, he'll try anything once, and if he doesn't like it, he won't eat it.
Great, that makes sense. Hey, he's a big bird. What size cage is he in, and what are his cage? That wave is so cute. What size cage is he in?
That wave is cute, but it also means I have needs, and you should meet them right now. His cage right now is 3 feet by 4 feet by 6 feet.
Okay.
And he pretty much uses the entire cage. No, you're gonna give me a bald spot. So he does use all of the material. He likes to swing. He likes to. He's got a boing, and he likes to bounce on that. And then of course he's a macaw, so he chews everything.
He's pretty bouncy right now. So we're coming up on the end of our time. In our last minute or so, is there anything you want to tell a potential adopter who is thinking about this big, beautiful, and very, very friendly boy?
Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot else to say about him. He's a nice bird. He is quite communicative with his needs and his moods. And so I don't think you'll have a hard time reading his moods. This
All
is
right, thank you
Play,
so. Yeah,
and
very
right
clearly.
now, yeah, I'm not sure. He woke up this morning and he has done his. He doesn't fly as far as we know, but he was flapping, and now he appears to need to be
with
active
you,
with a person.
with you. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, John, for sharing him. He's a sweetheart, and hopefully someone is watching him and falling in love as much as I am. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Now we're going to head downward in the size scale from one of the largest birds, one of the largest of the parrot species anyway, to a few of the smaller ones, some budgies, also known as parakeets. Hi, Susanna.
Hi.
So I know that there are 4 budgies in this cage. I can see parts of 2 of them. We still have Amber, Emily, Junie, and Nancy. Is that right?
That's correct. We have
Oh, now I see all of them.
a
They're all
quartet
bouncing.
here.
Yeah, the budgie quartet. So who's who?
Well, I think of them always in terms of their coloration from yellow to green. So Amber is the most yellow. Emily is the next yellow. She's got a little bit of gray on her wings. She's on, she's down below.
Oh,
And
I
then-
see her now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Junie is a half, and that's Junie in the foreground.
Yep, hopping
then-
around.
And then Nancy is the shyest, and she's in the farthest budgie on the bottom.
Right, we can just see the barring of her wings
Yeah.
down there. And oh, and she just moved. And they have a disco ball. Oh, makes
when
me
I-
want to sing Budgie Nights. Budgie Nights. Okay, sorry.
They when I give them spray baths, that's when they enjoy their disco ball the most.
Do we know how old they are?
We don't. They came from an aviary. They're all girls, and based on the color of the cere above their nostrils, they seem to be on the younger side. Nancy, the green one, is the oldest. She's definitely sexually mature
Got it.
because her cere is a little bit brown.
So they came from an aviary, and often Mickaboo gets aviary birds that are wind up in a pretty neglected state and in poor health. It looks like these guys have recovered pretty well.
Yes, they look really, their feather is really beautiful. They may have a touch of cladosporium, which is just something that would be embedded in their lungs. It's not contagious. And we say may because some of their flock mates were tested positive for that. But they are totally asymptomatic and healthy.
That's
in-
nice.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say, but I want to remind our viewers of 2 things. One, that they can ask questions about these budgies in the Q&A on Zoom or in Facebook. And again, that we don't adopt budgies out singly because they're so social. They really need the company of others of their kind. And sometimes they form, often in fact, they form really serious pair bonds, even not necessarily mating pairs, but just friends who shouldn't be separated. Are any of these what we would call bonded?
I sometimes wonder whether Junie and Nancy, so Junie is there on the left and Nancy is the green. I sometimes wonder if they are, because I've seen them regurgitate food for each other. It's not a super bond. They're not preening constantly, and they're not always sleeping together. But they do seem a little bit friendly.
Got it. Got it. What do they eat? What's a good diet for a quartet of budgies like this?
Well, it's very similar to the cockatiels that Martha described earlier. Half pellet and half seed is the goal. And in my case, what I do is I feed them a dish of pellets in the morning, and then I feed them a dish of seed at night. So that's how I try to achieve that 50-50 balance.
Great.
And they were the first budgies that I've ever had that immediately took to pellets of any kind. Supreme, Harrison's, Rowdy Bush. It was really remarkable. Usually budgies are scared of new food, and these guys weren't.
Right. And I see a lot of greens hanging too. I think it's the disco ball. Just makes for well-adjusted birds. How do they interact with people? Do they like people? Are they okay with hands? Do they step up, or are they a little more
they are a little on the shy side, and Emily and Amber are sort of the most curious, and not so afraid of people. Nancy is pretty afraid of people. She'll always be the farthest from the cage.
Nancy is the green, who's in the far back.
Yeah. But I think, like Martha, I'm sort of just taking it slow with them. They came from an aviary situation, and it takes a while sometimes for birds to sort of open up and become comfortable. So I would say Nancy's afraid of hands, and then the other ones I'd say are coming along pretty quickly.
Got it. And someone else is asking, how big a cage should 3 budgies have?
This cage that they're in could probably hold 5 budgies. It is 32 inches wide, 21 inches deep, and 37 and more, a little bit more tall.
Okay. That's fair. And a big
question.
Yeah, no, that certainly answers the question. That's an okay sized cage for 3 to 5 budgies. Always for birds, a bigger cage is better.
Absolutely. And I have been, I've been thinking of actually rearranging the bars so that they fly across the bar. The bar is parallel to the short direction, so they have longer to fly. These birds will have daily, they'll have a very active session where they're flying back and forth. It would be great for them to get out. I did open the cage door a few times, and only Emily came out, I think. So they're a little bit afraid, but it's been, as they settle in, I think they'll, be less afraid to come out.
Got it. I see their cage has got lots of toys in addition to their disco ball. What kind of toys do they like, and what do they like to do?
They like to chew on various things. They won't go at it. So they won't start shredding something, wholeheartedly, constantly, which is good, because that could be a hormonal action. But in the back there's a green thing that has an old Valentine's Day bouquet in it, and they do enjoy picking that out, chewing on that, throwing it to the floor, and I always put it back up.
Nice. Do you think that, I know Nancy is still quite timid, but do you think that the rest of them would socialize well with the right care?
I do.
They're certainly young and adaptable.
Yes, they're very beautiful.
They are. And budgies make such a lovely ambient sound too. Just their sort of chittery singing.
That's right.
Very sweet. Are any of these birds, do any of them have any medical or special care needs that we know of?
No, not that we know of.
All right. So in our last few minutes, what else would you like to share with potential adopters, or what would they need to be aware of to adopt a pair or a quartet of budgies like this?
I would say that budgies have pretty big personalities, and I think these budgies are on the more gentle side. You did see a little bit of beatboxing because I put out some millet, but I rarely hear any squabbling, which is fairly uncommon for female budgies. So
Right.
I would characterize this flock as sort of a gentle flock. And they're also just, they were eating millet earlier, but they don't, eat all of their food in one go. They, snack throughout the day. So I would say they're not that food oriented, this particular flock.
Oh, we have one more question coming in. How long have you had these for? They came in from the aviary. When was that?
In October.
October. So not super long.
Yeah, not super long. They were at the vets and they got checked out and treated for I think AGY and have a clean bill of health. So when they first came into our rescue, they were at the vets, which was not fun for them.
Sure. All right, thank you so much for sharing these. We're going to move to a smaller group of birds now, even smaller than budgies, and Susanna's gonna get us there. So we've really looked at a wide variety of birds that are in Mickaboo's care, from Tutu, the very large blue and gold macaw, very, very interactive, very friendly. Well, friendly is not the right word because all of them in this case are friendly, but very wanting to interact with people. We had Gracie, who has got some real pain and arthritis issues that she's dealing with, but is still maintaining a super sweet temperament. And then the 4 budgies that we just saw. And I would say, if you're going to adopt budgies, just have a very high tolerance for cuteness, because boy, they are just darling. And then Tati, the very sweet and very mellow cockatiel, who is going to make someone a nice, just hang out and be together kind of companion. Finches are different than parrots, and right on schedule. Susanna, you are just on top of things. Now, is this the original Finch gang with Bonnie and Raclette?
This is the Vista Finch gang.
Vista Finch gang, and I think that I see at least 6 finches. How many are in the cage?
7. There are actually 7.
So
Can you hear
finches
me?
are yeah. So finches are much smaller than budgies. These guys are probably about 20 grams a piece.
Less, I would say. And it is interesting. I try to feed them on my hand, and some of them are definitely heavier than the others.
Right.
And some of them weigh almost, light as a feather.
And once again, people can ask finch questions in the Q&A. We'll try to get to them. So what's it like having finches around?
They are 7 o'clock, wake up and call. They tell the time perfectly.
But when they call, how loud is it? We were just talking about Tutu, whose call can be heard a quarter mile away pretty easily. When finches call, what's it like?
Do you hear little murmurs right now?
Mm-hmm.
So it's about twice as loud as that. It's not very loud.
Right.
But when all 7 of them call at once, then you get a little bit of volume.
Those are really cute little sounds, guys.
They are. They're super cute.
Do we know how old they are?
I don't know how old they are. They've been in our care, I think, for about 2 years.
So they're at least 2, and we don't know much beyond that.
We have there's 6 females here and 1 male. You can tell the male because he's speckled. He's in the back there on this next to the greens.
Oh yeah, yeah, there he is.
And he does seem to have, a favorite girl. We did have an egg that got laid, and I don't know who laid the egg, but they laid it on a little pot of wheatgrass that we had. So I removed that wheatgrass. So it's something to be watchful of, to have nothing that they can make a nest out of.
Right, sure. Because if we can make nests, then we can make babies. And
That's right.
what we don't want to see happen, because 7 finches can easily become large multiples of 7 finches. Absolutely. So let's talk about basic living arrangements. How much room do they need?
This cage is about as big as, it's taller than the budgie cage that we were looking at, and it's very nice to have a lot of vertical distance for them to segregate themselves differently, throughout the day as different, moods. So they don't need quite as much room as bigger birds, but because they fly a lot and they're primarily in the cage only.
Right, so they should have room to fly around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They do a wonderful job. If you do a slow-mo on your iPhone, it's really fascinating to watch them hover.
Yeah, bet. Yeah, they're flying all over now as we talk. Very, very well demonstrating the point that they need room to fly.
Yes.
I don't see a lot of toys in the cage, but I see some hanging greens and stuff. What do they like to do?
They are not super toy oriented in my care, and maybe I could offer them a little bit, something more. I do try to offer a variety of greens, and fennel is really great because they can tear it up, and chickweed is also a really sort of delicate green in season now that they
nice.
can so I think that I would say that they play with their food, their greens, and it's a little bit nesty sometimes maybe, but in general it's just very bird.
When you're a finch, it's okay to play with your food.
Yeah.
One of our viewers is asking, would they miss each other if they were split up? And that leads to kind of the companion question. We talked about small birds needing a flock. What is the minimum number and what's a good number of finches to have together?
I think 6 finches. I had a little flock of 6 finches, and I think that was a perfect number. 7 is also fairly okay. I do worry a little bit about having a boy in the flock.
Right.
And then we also have a little kid in here named Curly, who sometimes gets chased around. And, but I've also seen another bird preening him. So I don't know. I don't think these, so that's interesting how you saw that.
Mm-hmm. A little squabble.
A little squabble.
But it sounds like it would certainly not be good to have 1 finch or even 2 finches together.
Oh, never.
Never. They need groups.
Yeah, they need groups, and I think this flock would be okay to split up. I think I would try to keep the ones that snuggle with each other together for sure. But other than that, I think they're fairly flocky.
And what are vet expenses like for finches? Is it 7 times the cost?
Vet expenses?
Yeah.
These finches have had a little bit of vet expenses with a preen gland that was blocked. And you can see how they look a little bit scruffy, and I think that's due to the preen gland. But they are sort of a healthy group. they're really fighting right now. This is unusual.
They're so it sounds though like in general they're not going to the vet super often or regularly like you might for a parrot because
No,
this is close to their normal climate and things like that.
right. I think that they, one must be very cautious of keeping perches clean, because if they happen to step in their droppings, it could harden around their feet and then constrict their feet. And
Oh wow.
unfortunately, that happened to one of my prior finches. And so they lose a toe. So that's one specific care.
Right. And they still need to see an avian vet, and you know, you don't pay an avian vet by the gram. It's still by the individual. So it's
right.
it's worth calling out.
Yeah.
I noticed that you've had your hand out for them to come, and they're happily playing with each other in the other side. So I'm guessing that they're not really hand tame and just are sort of, we like to hang out and make noise, and having you around is okay.
Yeah,
What
they I have not, they have eaten from my hand before, and I have not offered seed from my hand for at least a month, and so they're not as used to it right now, but they're definitely looking at it. They'd never be hand tame like shoulder surfing for sure.
Right, and probably wouldn't be. What do they eat, and what are some favorites? You mentioned fennel as one of the veggies, but what's their basic diet?
So on the veggie side, chickweed, fennel, arugula, celery tops, just a lot of your basic greens. And then I feed them similar to the Budgies. In the morning, I feed them Harrison's pellets. And I would say it's important that you get the super fine, because they cannot eat large pellets, right, and they will starve if given only large pellets. So I feed them pellets in the morning, and then in the night I feed them seed.
Nice. So in our last few minutes, you know, what kind of person might enjoy a small flock of finches like this?
I think that anybody who is sort of fascinated by flock interactions, it is really fascinating to watch them interact with each other. And I always see something new. They're definitely, you know, a sort of an ambient companion in that sense. Right. But I think they're fascinating. Even their noises, you know, how they're just constantly talking to each other. So even if they're not, you know, moving, they're making little sounds. So I think somebody who is very interested in birds, you know, like in flocks.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Someone was also asking, we mentioned earlier about how to keep them from breeding and laying eggs. And you mentioned, you know, not giving them places to nest, which is one important thing. And another thing with finches is to reduce the number of hours of light that they get.
Yes.
Because nesting and making babies is a springtime activity, and longer days is definitely a trigger for that.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing the Finch gang as well as the Budgie quartet with us.
Yes, thank
you.
you.
It's been really wonderful. And thanks to all of you for attending Mickaboo's February virtual adoption fair. If you have any ideas or comments on how we can improve for next time, please include it in the event survey, which you'll get a link to when you exit. Your feedback is really helpful. Or send us an email. We're always looking to get better. There are a lot more birds who need their forever homes. So if you fell in love with one of these birds, please contact us and get started on the process. And if nobody here seemed like the right bird, take a look at our website, mickaboo.org. There are a lot of other wonderful birds waiting for their forever home. Please remember, we are a fully donation-funded nonprofit, and you can support this work of parrot and finch rescue at mickaboo.org/donate or paypal.me/Mickaboo. We'll be doing these virtual adoption fairs regularly. We're planning another one on April 29th. So check in about this and other events on our events page. Once again, at mickaboo.org. Hey, that says mickaboo.org right behind me on the virtual background. How convenient is that? All right, huge thank yous to all of our foster parents and their birds for being brave enough to come on video, and for all the volunteers who provided technical support and kept this event happening smoothly. Roll credits.